The third spacewalk is performed on flight day 8 by Scott and Wheels, and it's expected to be a 7-hour EVA. Again, we'll start by zooming in on the airlock Quest. This time, Wheels will egress first, followed by Scott, which spreads the experience of operating the hatch amongst the crew. After they come out of the hatch, they have a long way to travel to get down to P5 so they can assist with P6 installation. You can see P6 flashing all the way down the truss on the right. We'll fly the virtual reality simulator down there, and when we get there, you'll see that P6 is positioned just off of P5. In flight, it will be 130 centimeters out and 2 meters forward. Due to the required precision to install the truss and the need to monitor the robotic clearances, the EVA crew is required for berthing cues to help the robotic operators with the fine details. As we fly up, you'll see Scott in the foreground at the nadir forward corner, and Wheels is in the aft zenith. The crew is going to flash here for a second. They'll give verbal guidance for berthing, and then Wheels will close the capture claw. After this, they'll go around to each corner and install the RTAS bolts in a specific sequence, ending with a sequence using a torque wrench. And then they'll release the preload on the capture latch so that the bolts carry the primary load for the life of space station. The next major objective will be to apply power to P6 so it can be activated and its arrays can be redeployed. This is done with 4 umbilicals. So Scott begins mating the connectors from P5 to P6. As we fly around here, you'll be able to see the area they're working in. It's going to be flashing. Scott's in a foot restraint due to the cable stiffness and the geometry in the area. Here's some video from the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, so you can see the general work site. Wheels will come over at the end of the procedure to help Scott as required. Next, they'll go to the very tip of the newly installed truss element and take the shrouds off of the sequential shunt units. These are the same shrouds that were installed on EVA-1. They put these in a bag to bring inside, and then Wheels heads back to the lab to start working on the NBSU task. Scott stays behind and releases the cinches on the photovoltaic radiator so that it can be redeployed as part of the P6 activation steps. Once the cinches are released, the radiator will be deployed with a command from the ground. The radiator is deployed during a day pass, so it can be watched for any unusual movement or problems. Scott might or might not be in the area depending on his timing. Next, Scott heads back to the starboard truss. Between EVAs 2 and 3, the ground sent commands to fire the cinches on the S1 outboard radiators, and these radiators should be deployed by this EVA, although it isn't shown that way in this video. Now that the radiator cinches have fired, Scott reconfigures the squib firing unit back to the way we found it by swapping a connector and cap. Then Scott will have some free time where he can perform some small get-aheads like bag moves and strap installations. And now back to what Wheels has been doing since he last left Scott on P5. He sets up the shuttle robotic arm with an adapter and a foot restraint, and he gets onto that foot restraint over on the Nadir lab. He might have to direct George and Stephanie, the arm drivers, with cues for moving the arm. Here you can see him coming into the upper part of the screen. They then fly Wheels over to the shuttle payload bay on the starboard side to pick up the critical spare box called the main bus switching unit, MBSU. He drives 1 bolt to release it, and then takes it back to space station via the shuttle arm. Scott's waiting for Wheels to arrive so they can both install it on external stowage platform 2. Wheels needs Scott's help because the arm can't quite reach for Wheels to install it by himself. Here you can get a feel for the size of the box, which weighs 525 pounds. After that, Wheels will take the foot restraint off of the shuttle arm, and they'll both come inside, Scott going into the airlock first. Right around this time, the first solar array will be redeploying on P6, so the day is still pretty busy for the IVA crew after the EVA.